Thank you to Brand Innovators for having us. As mentioned, my name is Liz. I work at Perion, and if you are not familiar, we are a channel agnostic, high impact partner across display, CTV, video, digital out of home, audio, retail media, and into the walled garden. So, I had to just give my little spiel, my little 2 seconds. But fun fact about me is in my free time, I like to peruse the internet for my dream homes and unrealistic real estate, which is a perfect segue to my friend Ed here. Ed, tell us a little about yourself.
So I'm so glad to represent Zillow. I'm working on a brand that most people love, that I hear stories all the time about how they found their home on Zillow. A little backstory for me is many years ago, my mom started a real estate brokerage. She was pretty successful in it. And she, when I was about college age, she was like, "Hey, do you want to come into real estate?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to do that. I want to do marketing, et cetera. Don't want to do it." So it's like a full circle moment when I've kind of come back from marketing media back into Zillow. Yeah. So definitely an exciting time to be there as well.
Awesome. Well, before we get into where things are headed, I would love to set the stage. Zillow has had a huge transformation story in history, from the typical fragmented channel by channel approach to something much more intentional. Can you walk us through that journey a little bit? What does Zillow's media strategy look like today versus where it was a few years ago?
Yeah, so I think a couple of years ago, we had a strategic shift from a Zillow perspective, where initially we were just trying to drive visits onto the site. And that was the goal of media, was to help drive that as well. So we had a pivot about 3 years ago when I joined, which was really to go a bit farther down funnel and drive an understanding of the transaction. When people tell me, I found my house on Zillow, I'll go one layer deeper and I'll say, okay, did you transact with Zillow, or did you find your house on Zillow but then transacted off of Zillow? And 98% of people will say they transacted off of Zillow, right? So what we are trying to do is to increase our transaction volume, awareness of the transactions that you can do on Zillow, and really create an ecosystem where you could do your entire, from finding your home to buying your home online, obviously with a physical component, and the agent is key to all of this. So we are not looking to exclude the agent. So when I inherited a media plan a couple of years ago, it was 60% television, which for a digital brand feels way off, right? So we ended up really rethinking kind of the approach, the desire to go farther down transaction. And we've shifted from that media mix to about 90% we are digital today. And we've expanded kind of the number of, we've expanded both the budgets, but also expanded the number of partners that we work with. I think our social strategy, for the most part, when I joined, was 90% Meta, and we love Meta, but it was only Meta was our strategy. So how we expanded to where the eyeballs are, where the consumers are engaging, et cetera, was really a huge part of that journey as well.
Awesome. Now, some examples that you've been involved in, this is a tee up for a beautiful slide coming, include Marvel's Fantastic Four and World of Warcraft. These are not your typical media buys. So what made you believe that partnerships could be a real performance driver, not just a brand credibility play? And look at that right there. Stunning, stunning.
Yeah, these are great examples of really media-driven partnerships. And this was new to Zillow. We really had never really thought of partnerships. We were always about how are we driving to an action versus necessarily more building out brand love, extending the brand love that Zillow has into new places or unexpected places. So this is the Baxter building as part of Fantastic Four, where we developed out an entire ecosystem. We went back to the 60s. We took out a newspaper ad in the New York Times, and we reimagined what Zillow would have been in 1960 when you didn't have all of kind of the digital ecosystem that you have today. So huge engagement from a consumer perspective, integration. We did have TV ads. We had, really across every form we were out there, and it was just a huge success for us. I think there was a Clio involved in it, or at least a nomination for a Clio as well. So really, we were excited about partnering with Marvel on this initiative, and it just goes to show a brand partnership can drive impact as well, and that's really what we saw with this as well.
What does everyone think? A 4-bed, 4-bath for $4.4 million. Good deal, bad deal? New York City, we would say it's a good deal, but New York's one of one.
And then I don't know if we'll go to the next slide.
Yeah, for World of Warcraft. Yep.
Perfect. So this was just launched about a month or so ago. And there's a whole microsite where we reimagined what Zillow would look like in World of Warcraft. And you can go in. We partnered with players to spotlight their homes on World of Warcraft. We've included like widgets within there where you can get certain virtual things for your home as well. And just huge engagement from a consumer perspective, and we really saw it driving impact back to our website. And again, the goal was not to drive transactions with this, but we certainly saw some benefit to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. How many people here are fans of World of Warcraft? Yes, we got some fans. Amazing. So when you are evaluating a potential partner, what are you actually looking for? Is it audience, culture fit, creative opportunity?
I think it's the integration between the brand and the property itself. Like other ones that we are doing, will continue to do is with the Los Angeles Rams. So everyone gets excited, at least I do from an NFL fan perspective, for the NFL draft. So we have Rams Draft House that is, this is our third year doing Rams Draft House with the Los Angeles Rams. It is a way for to spotlight how when players come into a new environment, they may need help finding a short-term rental or a home as well. So really, we first started taking over the house, and the house that the Rams rent out usually is iconic in some way, right?
I'm
Beautiful
sure.
house. They did a firehouse 1 year after the Los Angeles fires, et cetera. But they really do a great job. We've taken some of that over with branding. We'll have events there as well. So it's really become a great partnership between the Rams and Zillow that we're hoping will continue for many years.
Absolutely. And another big part of your strategy is the someday starts today. How have you guys re-envisioned that internally to be more than just a tagline?
Yeah, so Someday Starts Today is our new campaign, but we think of it not just as a consumer platform, but really a platform for employees, for everyone that interacts with Zillow, because everybody has their own Someday Starts Today. If you're an agent and you're trying to build your business, how can you do that? What are the tools that Zillow has to help you with that? If you're a renter, your someday might be finding an apartment that has its own washer and dryer, right? Or that it's your first place where you're moving by yourself. So everyone's someday is different. So we think it's a platform that extends across rentals. Certainly the home buying experience is complex. It's challenging today. It's hard to find a home. It's hard to afford a home, et cetera. We want to recognize that, but also help consumers take steps to make home closer to reality, whatever that reality is for that consumer. So we've engaged from a consumer perspective. We think there's a huge platform from an agent and an owner perspective, and then also from an employee perspective as well, where everybody's someday looks a little bit different. So we're really excited about how we think this will become a platform for us for many years.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's next step to the bigger and better thing means something so different to each individual person. So It's not just a cookie cutter way to look at it.
Yeah. And I think the other piece that I didn't mention in terms of our media strategy is what we've done over the last 2 years is premiumized everything we've done. Where previously we had, we were showing up in maybe the less expensive environments. We wanted to pick partners that we felt were the right stage for the Zillow brand as well. So everything we've done from a TV buying perspective to a social platform perspective has been about how we find those premium environments for us to be able. And what we found when we've done that is we are paying higher costs for doing that. Our CPMs are higher, but our ROAS is also much higher as a result of that, because those premium environments really play out in a much stronger way, and I think also help amplify the brand to the way we want it to be done as well.
Well, speaking of ROAS, let's all talk about the elephant in the room, measurement. So partnerships, brand campaigns, cultural activations are typically pretty hard to tie back to business outcomes. So how are you thinking about the challenge at Zillow, and what does good enough measurement look like when there's some leap of faith involved in the way that you're activating?
Yeah, it's a challenge for, I think, all marketers, right? So my background is I spent 11 years at PepsiCo on the analytics side. I moved over to Comcast to help from a marketing optimization and lead their marketing science org, and then joined Zillow a couple of years ago to bring more data-driven decisions into the media buying process, and that was the intention there. I think as we've transformed our media approach, we've put a lot of stress on our data science team to be able to keep up with that. And they're great partners, by the way. Our data science team does a lot with the limited resources that they have. But we try not to design our media plans to be measured. I mean, we want them to be measured, but we're not going to design our media plan to make it more easy to measure if we don't think that's the right to do from a consumer perspective. So as we've expanded partners, as we've moved into partnerships, it has put a lot of pressure on, one, what are we really trying to do with that brand campaign? What is the primary metric we're trying to drive? What's the secondary metric that we're trying to drive with it as well? And then putting those parameters in place from a measurement perspective. And, we use various tools to do that, right? We brought our MMM in-house. The team's made a lot of improvements to it, but that, when I first joined, I was told, the most efficient thing we do is TV ads, and we should continue to do those. And we knew that wasn't where our consumer was, where we wanted to be. So we had to actually deviate from the measurement to, and part of it was because we didn't have enough scale. We weren't doing YouTube. We weren't doing YouTube 3 years ago. So and when we did do it, we did it in such small scale that it was impossible for the data science team to be able to measure it in a meaningful way. So we had to take bets, and we made bets in certain places. Some of them paid off well, others didn't pay off, and we pivoted from that as well. But we've implemented like a robust MMM approach. We've also have holdout tests and DMAs that are ongoing. So we will hold out media for most of our channels. And then look to validate some of the measurement that we have there. On the partnership side, much more of a challenge, right? Because we're trying to drive things like first choice brand preference. We're not trying to drive down to the transaction. So one of the things that we're doing from a measurement perspective is trying to tie the upper funnel desire action, whether it's around awareness or first choice brand preference, to ultimately to lower funnel actions. So the data science team has done a good job in creating what we're called a brand impact index, which essentially tries to marry the upper funnel with the lower funnel so that we can predict what we think the outcome will be from driving, say, a first choice brand preference. And, in my world, and I used to work in CPG, right? The purchase cycles were 30 days, 7 days, 30 days, 60 days. Welcome to the longest purchase cycle in marketing, right? At least from a home buying perspective. It is many, many years in many cases. Rentals, people move on the average of every 2 years or so on the rental side, but it's still a long cycle that they go through there. So we have to think about how we move people along the funnel as we go through each of those. So partnerships is a great way to do that. We recognize that I think there's about 17 million rentals that move every year, and there's about 4 to 6 million housing transactions that happen. So that's a fraction of our audience. Our audience at Zillow is about 230 million unique users a month. Now, that does include some duplication, I think, with, if you're on app versus you're on web, right? But we have a large scale audience. Not all of them are ready to transact, so we want to make sure we're moving them along in that journey to when they're ready to buy, they understand the role that Zillow can play within that journey as well.
Amazing. And let's give it up for our brand science people a little bit more. They're doing all that heavy lifting. So AI is obviously dominating every conversation in this industry right now. I get the sense your perspective is a bit more grounded, a bit more operational than at the macro level. What's the actual work you're doing with AI at Zillow, and where is it genuinely moving the needle?
Well, I think there's a couple of areas. I'll speak to overall Zillow at a high level, and then I'll speak to what we're doing from a marketing and a media perspective. We do believe that AI can transform the home buying experience, make it easier to search for your home, to find a home in more real time. So we are doing work to reimagine what Zillow today may not be in 2 years what Zillow looks like from a consumer perspective. From a marketing and from a media perspective, we are doing, well, one, obviously we're leveraging the tools that our partners have, right? Which I think everyone's doing, right? Around Meta, around Google. But on top of that, we are testing various AI algorithms. One of them, I don't think our Chalice partners are here, but we're working with Chalice AI. They are introducing kind of custom algorithms into the supply side buying algorithm where there's a lot more signals that are out there. So it enables us to identify those premium environments that are actually performing for us, test bidding strategies, as well as look at millions of websites, score each of them based on certain criteria that we would then evaluate in real time to then bid against. And what we found is, which validates what we've been doing all along, which is those premium environments, even though they cost more, are much more valuable to us. And we obviously don't want to pay any more than we have to for those, but we do recognize that there's a value to that premium environment. So that's one element of our AI approach. The other element is really around how we reimagine workflows within the media team as well. Like the workflow that I have an in-house team that does SEM and that does paid social. So we're starting there and looking at and reimagining what those workflows might look like from when we bring AI. Like there's some low-hanging fruit. How do we automate some of the tasks that they have today to make their jobs easier, to make their roles more strategic? And we expect that to continue. We want our employees to be doing more strategic things. So one, how do we just eliminate or routinize some of those tasks through AI? The other piece is how we reimagine those workflows and how those workflows could fundamentally change in terms of some people's jobs, where ultimately at some point they may be managing AI agents as opposed to actually being hands-on keyboard for some of the work. So that's where like 2026 for me and my team is a learning year. Like my goals around that are more to have a reimagined workflow towards the back half of the year that we can make sure we're testing, validating, is it working like we expect it to work? How do we then increase? It's not about reducing workforce. It's about how we need to increase capacity on the team. And this is, we think, a huge enabler and an unlock to allow us to do that. So we don't have it all figured out. We are testing different ways to go about it.
You don't?
I would love to say we do, but I think that would be crazy, right? None of us have AI figured out. What AI does today is going to be so different than what
Absolutely.
it is in 2 or 3 years. So, but we are working towards kind of what we think that reimagined workflow would look like, with the notion that we're probably only going to get half of it right, and then we'll adjust from there.
And then beyond AI specifically, are you finding yourself using more tools and partners than a few years ago, or are you consolidating?
Well, you're talking about in terms of like media partners. I think from a media partners, we've expanded significantly the partners that we work with today. I mean, we've pared down some of the lists in terms of channels that we're on and things like that. But from a channel perspective, we've expanded to, I think we're in almost every channel that we think is scalable enough to work on a national basis for us. We continue to test each year, like I created a media transformation part of the team where we've ring-fenced dollars for them. They can go experiment with that. They can figure out, and if it's going to fail, let's fail fast, and let's then reinvest some of those dollars in new things. So that's where we've done some things, like I mentioned, the Chalice test last year, which scaled this year into something that's going to be a much larger part of the media mix. Spanish language is another area where we are an English language website, but we know that Hispanics also will be bilingual, and many of them are comfortable, in both languages. So how do we introduce Spanish language into into our media mix? This year, you'll see us on some of the World Cup that's in Spanish language on Telemundo, where we will have ads that are Spanish language as well. We think that's we've tested it last year in other ways, and we think that's another way where we can expand our audience, be more relevant, meet them where they are. So again, like the establishment of that media transformation team gives people the permission to try things with no expectation of ROAS, no expectation of ROI, so that we can fail comfortably without having to be held accountable for that. And that's been aligned up through our leadership teams on that.
Failing comfortably, definitely not something that every company does, but clearly it works out for you guys. Now, as we wrap up, you've covered the evolution of Zillow's media strategy, the power of integrated partnerships, the hard work of measurement, and the real operational promise of AI. If you could leave the audience with one thought starter to take back to their teams on Monday, one reframe, what would it be?
Well, and this will not be revolutionary, I fear, but how
don't sell yourself
are
short.
We thinking
you never know
about certainly I'll just say from a Zillow perspective, how are we thinking about how LLMs will change our media mix, right? And certainly search is going to be under pressure, right? 80% of our traffic today is direct to our website, which we're proud of. That's at risk, right? How are we? So we are looking. We're partnering. Actually, our OpenAI ads launched Monday, I believe, on the site. Again, they are not influencing the algorithm. They are simply appearing in relevant searches as well, as another way to kind of expand or protect our traffic, with the notion of how LLMs are still a small part of overall search, but we're naive to think that they're not growing and aren't going to really transform. So from a media perspective, it's hugely important for us to get ahead of that.
Well, thank you so much, Ed. I think we have some time for some Q&A. Does anyone in the audience have any questions?
Here.
I don't know if you can hear me. Oh. Yeah. I was actually just sending you a LinkedIn message, so we'll just start here instead. So I couldn't help but think about this idea. You were talking a little bit about YouTube. YouTube is right now the #1 LLM server, essentially, in terms of recommendations. Yeah. And I wonder how much you're thinking about like creators in that realm, right? So traditional, like lifestyle creators, people talking about buying their first home, and how much that could serve your funnel into LLMs. So idea and question, but my question ultimately is like, how much are you thinking about social creators for Zillow?
It's a huge priority. And right now we are working on how we bridge my paid social team with our brand social team and really plus up our YouTube presence from a brand perspective. I think we have a lot of opportunities to do that. We are partnering with more creators, more agents, actual real estate agents in that space as well. But also, like, we're partnering with celebrities that love Zillow, right? And are looking to do things there as well. So I expect that the creator universe and the partnerships that we do on that side are going to increase. It will become a much larger part of our overall marketing mix, just given the relevance. And from a paid perspective, I can say how great Zillow might be, but coming from somebody who's in the industry, more authentic, et cetera, we believe that's a stronger message that goes on. So we are continuing to kind of broaden that creator base. And with really like relatively small creators we're looking for, and not necessarily those large scale ones as well. But my big challenge is how do we scale it to where it's enough of a thing that we can actually measure.
Okay, well, I'd love to talk to you later.
Maybe time for one more question.
Oh.
Making me work for it.
Get those steps in.
I guess back to the LLM conversation. Is the fear that LLMs will replace the search journey on Zillow, as you mentioned, right? Not a large majority of traffic is direct. Is the fear that people are going to start to go to these AI agents to essentially find listings and open houses in their area? And then what steps are you doing to potentially increase your citations on those LLMs?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've done, we've done a partnership with an integration into ChatGPT as well. So like if you activate that part of the agent, you can actually get the Zillow experience within that. I'm not one to say that we should, like the trend is to go there. So is it a risk? Is there a risk to traffic? Possibly. Is there a role that Zillow can play within that universe to enhance the overall experience that you can't necessarily get from, like when you're looking to buy a house, I think you're looking to go to a trusted partner. The agent plays such a critical role there. This is not you're going to go try out a new product when I was in CPG and stuff like that. There's low risk. It's a couple of dollars. This is a major thing where there's value to that intermediary step. So while we view it as more of an opportunity than necessarily a threat, but how we reimagine that experience with AI, I think will play a big role in enabling the transaction to happen and to happen virtually. Like when I say we want you to find your house and be able to close on your house, and I refer to it as like the Domino's pizza tracker, right? How can you know where you are along the way? And right now there's a lot of, it's not really transparent. How do we make Zillow much more transparent in that process? So when you're buying your first home, you know what you need to do, you know that what financial records you need to provide, when you need to provide them, et cetera, how you reach out to a loan officer, et cetera. All of those things require human intervention, but Zillow can help enable that is kind of our belief.
All right, thank you guys. Big round of applause for Ed and Liz. Thank you guys.